Welcome back to Simple Truth. Hey, we've been in the story of David, starting the story of David, been in 1 Samuel chapter 16, just the first few verses for the last couple of weeks, because it's the foundation of the story of David and what is going to happen with David. And the fact that God appointed him, anointed him, right, gave him the authority to be his representative, his king. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? And what's the process to get there? That's important for you and I to be thinking through as well as we fulfill the purposes and the plans that God has for us. What does that mean? What's that look like? What's the process going to look like? I think a lot of us think that God anoints us, authorizes us, and then just boom, it just happens. And that's not the way that it works usually. Usually God has been prepping us for a while, for a long time, in what he has for us. So I want to pick it up in verse 5, read for a few minutes, and then, or not a few minutes, read a few verses, and then talk to you about those. So it says in verse 5, and he said, "Peaceably I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves. Come with me to the sacrifices." He consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. I want you to grasp this, that when God puts a purpose on our hearts, when God tells us to go do something, there's a process here, right? And Samuel was told to go. You're going to anoint the next king. And he takes that very seriously. And he comes to the home, to the family of Jesse, and says, listen, everybody here has to be consecrated. You need to be prepared and set apart for God, for what God might have for you. Now, again, he's only going to choose one out of this family. So again, this is for most of them, they're consecrating for what God might do with them. That's something that you and I, we don't spend a lot of time thinking about. And are we willing to consecrate ourselves, set ourselves apart for what God might do in somebody else? See, most of us tend to think like, hey, if it's not about me, then it's a waste of my time. But sometimes we need to get prepared for what God is going to do, how God is going to move. And it might not be about us. Ever been to a special service or a regular service or a prayer meeting or a get-together or a luncheon or a family night or whatever it is? Then God says, I want you to take some time. I want you to prepare for that family night. I want you to prepare for that prayer meeting. I want you to get yourself ready for what I'm going to do. But maybe I'm not going to do it in you. I'm going to do it through you, or I'm going to do it with you, or you're going to get to witness this. There's great encouragement in just witnessing what God is going to do. So you and I need to take this seriously. Are we setting ourselves apart for the work of God? I believe that sometimes God chooses not to work because we haven't taken it seriously. Ever set aside time with your family or with friends, and how much preparation? Do you just roll out of bed and go to breakfast with your friends? Do you pray before you go to go to breakfast with your friends? Do you pray before you go to church on Sunday? You just roll out of bed and get yourself to church, right? All of these things matter. This whole idea of consecration, preparing ourselves for what God may do in us, may do through us, and may do with us just there, witnessing what's going on. Not everybody who came to Jesus got healed. Lots of people got healed. Lots of people who were sick got healed, but some people weren't sick. They didn't get healed, but they were there. Were they prepared for what God was going to do? So my simple truth, pretty simple this week. Are you preparing yourself for what God might do in you? What he might do with you, or he might do through you? Hey, we'll see you next time. Simple truth.